Yo, it's your boy, Jalen, and the topic today is going to be on equality maybe not needing to be taken to the extreme. Now, what do I mean by this, right? I'm going to use an example, okay? Let's have two people, compare and contrast. Dude number one is a freaking hardworking teenager, okay? Not really the smartest. He did graduate from high school, and now he's working towards trying to get into a trade or whatever, right? He's going to a community college that has a program for that. And, he's working towards building something that can be sustaining once he gets out of his 20s. Okay. Very hardworking, has a couple of accolades on his back, this, that, and the third. Example B is a dude who, for all intents and purposes, is a freaking criminal, okay? He freaking smokes weed, he steals, not very trustworthy. I'm not saying smoking weed is a bad thing, but I'm just adding it to the fact that he's essentially just a dopamine junkie when it comes to what he puts a lot of his energy towards. He does drugs, steals from people, gets into fights, all that type of jazz, right? Are these two people equal? A lot of people want to say yes. A lot of people want to say us as humans are equal. Us as humans should be treated the same. Us as humans should be given the same rights, the same privileges, the same respect. But for me, I don't really think so. I don't really think that that's the case. I think that, a normal, average, everyday person that is working hard, trying to survive, is trying to figure out life, might not be able to work, but it's just figuring things out. And it's trying to live life honestly and do right by himself and others. I think a person like that has more of a right to life and privileges than somebody that's, let's just say a rapist or something, or a killer. That's just me though, right? So I understand equality. I think that life, there's like a void, like a nothingness attached to life that makes it to where miracles can happen, that makes it to where, some of us are placed into the same predicament and can excel the same. Some of us might, be placed into worse circumstances, but then again, those people that are placed into those worse circumstances don't really know what they're made of. Some of those people might have more talent and more grit to the point to where they can excel more than somebody that is better off than them, right? So within life, there is a rhythm that makes it to where you can do good for yourself. You might not be able to do good as others when you see like the traits that you've inherited, the characteristics that you've inherited, your interests, this, that, and the third. You might not have the same excellence in certain areas as other people, but you can develop an excellence to yourself. So there is an equality in that standpoint. And I do think that equality that is made in a way that makes it to where everybody can practice their own, I guess you could say, individual will to power, and will to power within groups. Everybody can practice that, in the way that they see fit. I think a world like that, I think an equality like that can be accepted. And of course, will to power, of course, is strengthened through conflict, obstacles, and overcoming. So I'm not really saying that we need an equality that, gets rid of conflict and obstacles and discourse and, all those other sorts of things that signal antagonism. I'm not saying to get rid of antagonism and, opposition. I'm just saying that a world where people can be better people, I feel, is grand. I feel like that's a good thing. However, the bread is in the pudding with that statement. A world where people can be better versions of themselves, right? So in a world like that, there's going to be hierarchy, because there's going to be people that are improving themselves, and then there's going to be people that just sit around all day. There's going to be people that, are pieces of shit. There's going to be people that harm the weak, and there's people that argue that, the world is, it's a dog-eat-dog world, this, that, and the third. And that's not what we're arguing here, you know what I mean? It's not dog-eat-dog world that's the problem. You're going to be put into dog-eat-dog world scenarios. Just as a person within the ecosystem, just as a person, that has to contend with living with other people, you're going to have a dog-eat-dog existence. It's something just as simple as, like I probably said in the past, I think I did, something as simple as, like, for me, college registration is dog-eat-dog. Why is it dog-eat-dog? Because there's only a certain amount of seats in each class. So when you register and when you successfully pay for that course, you've taken away the opportunity for another person to obtain that course. So you did conquer them in a sense. You did contribute to dog-eat-dog. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the bad thing is that we're looking at people that are operating in a frame of a virus. They're not necessarily, dog-eat-dog. They're just viruses and plagues that lower the quality of life. They don't participate in life in a sense to where, they're contributing to, new forms and this, that, and the third. They're participating in life in a sense to where it's becoming more degraded and it's becoming harder for others to exist within it. And people like that are not in the same place and shouldn't be seen in the same vein as people that are living life honestly and that, are, doing the best that they can. Even, with people that help others. All those sorts of, normal tropes that we see when we look at the morally virtuous human being. I think that there's a lot of things when it comes down to virtues and morals that, we share in the East and the West, in tribal societies and in, I guess you could say more so westernized industrial societies. There's certain morals that we know that we like, and we keep them. And then there's people that don't really practice those morals, which, again, like I said, is not a bad thing unless you're operating. It depends on the frame that you're operating from. If you feel like that moral is hampering your will to power, whatever, then okay, go against it. Try and fight against it. Prove that there's a better way of living other than this moral that you were taught. But if you're going against this moral and it's making life worse, observably, then you might be the problem. It might not be the idea and the virtue. It might be you. You might be unvirtuous. So with that in mind, I don't really think all human beings are equal. I think that there are human beings that work harder, that have a better work ethic. I think that there are people out there that are more caring. I think that there are people out there that are more innovative. And when we just look at aptitude, all of us are better and worse in different areas. All of us are better and worse in different areas of our intelligence. When we look at, Gardner's model or whatever. So equality, maybe in a sense that I talked about in the beginning, but not equality in the sense that we're sort of being slowly taught. You know what I mean? I think that there's definitions of equality that we should accept and that need reframing. And I think that there's old definitions of equality that we might need to get rid of because the world, is showing us that that's not necessarily true. But anyways, this is Jalen signing out. Peace.